I never thought it would come to this. My name is Jake, and what I'm about to share is the story of how I discovered my wife, Emily, was cheating on me. We had been married for 5 years, and while I wouldn't say we had the perfect marriage, I believed we were happy enough. There were signs that something was off, but I brushed them aside, convincing myself that it was just the stress of daily life. The initial signs were subtle. Emily started putting her phone down face first whenever I walked into the room, and she would become defensive if I asked about her day. Nights became more routine. She would come home late, claiming to be busy with work, but I could hear the change in her tone, the way her voice would rise just a little too high when I questioned her. I'd catch glimpses of her texting, but it always seemed innocent enough. I should have trusted my gut, but I didn't want to believe that my wife would betray me. The turning point came one Saturday afternoon. I had decided to surprise Emily by cleaning the house and preparing her favorite dinner. I was feeling optimistic, like I was trying to reignite some spark between us. While tidying up, I stumbled upon her laptop, left wide open on the dining room table. Curiosity got the better of me and I glanced at the screen. There it was, a chat window open with a guy named Max. The messages were flirty, even explicit, and my heart sank. I could hardly breathe as I clicked through their conversation, feeling like a voyeur in my own life. The pieces fell into place as I read the messages. They made plans to meet up, and I could see that Emily had been pouring out her heart to this guy, sharing intimate details about our life and how bored she was in our marriage. It felt like a dagger to my heart. I shut the laptop, my hands shaking, and I knew I couldn't confront her empty-handed. I needed proof for when I called her out on this betrayal. As the evening approached, I watched the clock tick slowly, each minute feeling like an hour. I had planned the perfect dinner, but I was sick to my stomach. Emily came home, and I could tell she was in a good mood. She greeted me with a kiss that felt foreign, as if her lips were stained with the lies she'd been telling all along. We sat down to eat, and I tried to act normal, but my mind was racing. When the moment finally came, I couldn't hold back. I laid out everything in front of her, the messages, my feelings of betrayal, and the sense of loss that swallowed me whole. Her reaction was shocking. She laughed it off at first, saying I must have misunderstood. I could see the panic in her eyes, but she recovered quickly, flipping the script on me. She accused me of being paranoid, of being the one who didn't care enough to pay attention to her needs. "You're overreacting, Jake. You know how guys can be. It's just harmless flirting. You always get so worked up," she said, her tone dismissive. My anger boiled over, but her response cut deeper than any knife. I felt like I was losing the battle before it even began. In that moment, all I could think about was how I couldn't trust her anymore. The woman I loved had been lying to me, and now she was trying to make me feel like the villain for simply wanting honesty. I realized that this wasn't just about infidelity, it was about the complete breakdown of trust. The confrontation left me devastated, but I wasn't ready to just walk away. I needed to process this betrayal, to understand how I felt about our marriage and what I wanted for my future. I spent the next few days in a fog of anger, sadness, and confusion. Could I forgive her? Did I even want to try? As the reality of the situation settled in, I began to think about what I could do next. This was no longer just about her betrayal. It was about reclaiming my power and finding a way to move forward. I had to confront this head-on, and the thought of revenge started to form in the back of my mind. I was done being a victim. If Emily thought she could play with my heart and get away with it, she had another thing coming. What would I do? It was time to get creative. After the confrontation, I was left with a whirlwind of emotions. The anger simmered beneath the surface, and I found myself spiraling into a dark place. I spent sleepless nights replaying the moments we'd shared, wondering where it had all gone wrong. The more I thought about Emily's betrayal, the more determined I became to take control of my life. If she wanted to play a game, then I would be the one to change the rules. I started by digging into her digital footprint. I had some experience with tech. It was part of my job as a web developer. I knew how to navigate the digital world, and I decided to use that to my advantage. Tracking her online activity felt like a twisted form of justice, but it was the only way I could think of to find some semblance of control amid the chaos. I set up a hidden application on her laptop that monitored her activity. It felt invasive, but I was desperate for answers. I needed to confirm what I already suspected, and I needed to see if she was still in contact with that guy Max. At first, I felt guilty. I had always prided myself on being trustworthy and respectful of her privacy, but the guilt quickly turned to a cold sense of satisfaction as I gathered more evidence. Over the next few weeks, I observed her patterns. Emily would leave for errands that often lasted several hours, and I soon confirmed that those hours were spent with Max. She had been lying to me about where she was going, and the realization fueled my desire for revenge. I kept telling myself that this wasn't just about punishing her. It was about reclaiming my self-worth and dignity. I figured if she thought she could erase my happiness, I could erase hers. I started crafting my plan. I wanted to turn the tables on her in a way that would make her understand the pain she had caused me. I knew that if I acted quickly and decisively, I could cause the chaos that would leave her feeling the same way I had when I discovered her betrayal. The plan began to form. I would infiltrate her social media accounts, erase her digital life, and reveal her true colors to her friends. I knew how much she valued her online presence, how much she thrived on the validation from her followers. So, if I could hack her accounts, I could take away that facade she had built for herself. I started by changing her passwords, locking her out of her own accounts. I replaced her profile pictures with unflattering images, the kind that would make her cringe when she saw them. I made her posts appear confusing and nonsensical, creating an illusion of a breakdown, as if she were spiraling out of control. It felt liberating to take her carefully curated life and turn it upside down. But that wasn't enough. I needed to show her that her actions had consequences. I decided to send anonymous messages to her friends, revealing her affair. I crafted the messages carefully, presenting them as heartfelt confessions from someone who had seen the truth. I wanted her friends to see her for who she really was, someone who betrayed her husband without a second thought. As the days passed, I watched with satisfaction as her world began to unravel. She became increasingly paranoid, unaware that I was the architect of her digital chaos. I saw the confusion on her face when she tried to log into her accounts, the frustration when her friends started reaching out, questioning her actions. Each message I sent felt like a small victory, a way to turn her own game back on her. But it wasn't just about getting revenge. It was also about my emotional healing. Each time I saw her struggling, it was as if a piece of my pain was being lifted. I had been her victim for too long, and now I was the one in control. I relished the power I had over her life, and it allowed me to feel strong again. Yet, deep down, a nagging voice whispered that this wasn't going to solve everything. I was still grappling with my own feelings, the hurt, the anger, the betrayal. I needed to confront her face to face again to see if she would even try to defend herself or if she would crumble under the weight of her lies. I was ready for the next confrontation, even if I didn't quite know how it would end. Would she break down? Would she try to manipulate me again? Would she even realize the extent of the damage she had caused? I didn't know, but I was prepared. This was about more than just revenge. It was about reclaiming my life and my happiness. The stage was set, and I was ready to play my final card. With every passing day, I could feel the tension building. Emily was becoming increasingly erratic. The messages from her friends were flooding in, each one more bewildering than the last. They were concerned, asking if she was okay and if everything was all right between us. I could see the cracks starting to show in her carefully constructed facade, and it fueled my resolve. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I would do it on my terms. I planned a quiet evening at home. I told Emily I wanted to talk things through to clear the air. She seemed relieved, possibly thinking that I was willing to forgive and forget. Little did she know that I was prepared to lay everything bare. As the sun set, I set the scene. I lit some candles, poured myself a drink, and waited for her to arrive home from an errand. When she walked through the door, her face lit up with a smile that quickly faded as she took in the ambience. That split second of confusion was glorious. She asked me what was going on, but I just smiled, gesturing for her to sit. "Emily," I started, keeping my voice steady, "we need to talk about everything. But first I need you to know that I've seen everything." Her expression shifted from confusion to panic, and I could tell she was trying to piece together just how much I knew. I pulled out my laptop, the same one she had left open that fateful day. I opened her messages with Max, laying it all out in front of her. The flirty replies, the plans to meet, the intimate details she so freely shared. It was all there, and I watched her face flush with embarrassment and anger. "Jake, you've got it all wrong. You don't understand," she stammered, her voice rising to a pitch that echoed in the room. "Those messages were just jokes. You know how it is, right? I was just having fun." "Fun," I repeated, incredulous. "You called me paranoid for wanting to know the truth. You told me I was being unreasonable for wanting intimacy in our marriage, while you were out flirting with some guy behind my back. Fun doesn't even begin to cover it, Emily." Her eyes darted around the room, searching for a way to escape the confrontation. She tried to downplay the affair, saying it was just a stupid mistake, but deep down I could see the fear creeping in. "Please, just let me explain," she pleaded, her voice softer now. She was backpedaling, trying to rewrite the narrative in her favor. "It didn't mean anything. I was just feeling lonely. You've been so distant lately." I couldn't believe her audacity. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the chance to hold her accountable for her betrayal. "So now it's my fault that you decided to cheat. You thought this would solve your problems. You've shattered my trust, Emily." I watched as she started to unravel. The tears began to flow, and I felt a flicker of something resembling sympathy, but I quickly quashed that feeling. This wasn't about her anymore. This was about me reclaiming my power. "You think those tears are going to fix this?" I asked, my tone cold. "You've made your choices, and now you need to face the consequences. Your digital life has been turned upside down, and you need to understand what it feels like to have everything you once held dear taken away." The air was thick with tension as she processed my words. "What do you mean?" she asked, panic creeping back into her voice. It was the first time I saw genuine fear in her eyes, and it felt oddly satisfying. "I've erased the happy little narrative you've built for yourself online. Your friends are starting to question you, and soon enough they'll know the truth about your affair." I took a moment, letting it sink in. "Now you're going to have to face the fallout of your actions." Her response was a mix of desperation and indignation. "How could you do this to me, Jake? You're no better than I am." I leaned in closer, my voice low and steady. "I'm not the one who cheated. I'm not the one who betrayed their vows. You put me in this position. I didn't choose this fight, but I will win it." Her face went pale, and I could see that she finally understood the depth of the mess she had created. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a force to be reckoned with. "Do you think this is the end?" I asked, my eyes locked onto hers. "This is just the beginning. You need to confront the reality of what you've done. I want you to feel the weight of your decisions. It's time for you to own up, not just to me, but to yourself." As I finished speaking, I felt a mixture of triumph and relief. The confrontation had been intense, but I had finally said everything I had been holding back. The ball was now in her court. I wanted to see how far she would go to save her own skin. Would she truly change, or would she continue the cycle of lies? Either way, I was prepared to see it through. I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my happiness, and I wouldn't stop until I was free from the shadows of her betrayal. In that moment, I realized something vital. I was no longer the man who would accept betrayal in silence. It was time to embrace my new reality, and whatever came next, I would face it head on. The emotional journey might have been painful, but I was determined not to let it define me any longer. The game had changed, and I was ready for the next level. The days that followed the confrontation felt surreal. Emily was visibly shaken, and I could see the toll my actions had taken on her. It was almost as if she was trapped in a fog, unsure of how to navigate the fallout of her choices. While she had initially attempted to downplay her affair, the reality of the situation had finally sunk in. I could see it in her eyes, the way she looked at me with a mix of fear and resentment. I had expected her to fight back, to come up with more excuses or to try to manipulate me again, but she seemed defeated. She spent more time on her phone, her friends were reaching out to her, and I could sense the panic rising. I had essentially stripped away her online identity, and now she was facing the real-world consequences of her actions. Part of me felt satisfied, but I also had to confront the uncomfortable truth. I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted anymore. It was a strange feeling to have the upper hand. I was no longer the hurt spouse. I had transformed into someone ready to take control of his life. But as the days dragged on, the thrill of revenge began to wear off. I couldn't help but feel a tinge of sadness. Emily had been my partner for years, and now I was watching her unravel due to her own choices. One afternoon, she approached me with a tentative expression, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jake, can we talk?" I looked at her, surprised but intrigued. This was an opportunity I hadn't anticipated. "Talk about what?" I asked, trying to maintain a neutral tone. "About us," she said, her eyes searching mine for some sign of understanding. "I know I messed up. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you until now." I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "And what exactly do you think you can say to fix this?" She took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "I don't expect you to forgive me right now, but I want to make things right. I want to go to counseling, to really try and understand what went wrong between us. I never meant to hurt you, and I'll do anything to prove that." I wanted to scoff at her words, to remind her of all the lies she had told me, but a part of me also wanted to explore this new side of her. Maybe this was genuine remorse. Maybe she finally understood the impact of her actions. "What changed?" I asked, my voice steady. "What makes you think I can trust you again?" "Because I've realized how much I stand to lose," she said, her voice cracking. "You were my best friend, and I don't want to throw that away. I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust." I studied her face. Was she sincere, or was this just another attempt to manipulate the situation? Torn between anger and a glimmer of hope, I found myself at a crossroads. I could either continue on my path of revenge or consider the possibility of reconciliation. "I need time to think," I finally said, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. "You've shattered my trust, and it's not something that can be easily fixed. If we're going to go down this road, it has to be different." She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I understand. Just please know that I'm committed to changing. I want to be a better person for you, for us." As she turned and walked away, I felt a mix of relief and uncertainty. Was I really ready to entertain the idea of rebuilding our marriage? The thought of returning to the life we had built together felt daunting, but the prospect of a fresh start was equally appealing. The days that followed were filled with tension. Emily started going to therapy, and I found myself grappling with my own emotions: anger, sadness, hope. I had spent so long plotting my revenge that I hadn't considered how I would feel if she genuinely tried to change. It was a battle between the desire for retribution and the flickering hope for reconciliation. I found myself watching her closely, looking for signs that she was truly committed to this new path. She would come home after therapy sessions, her eyes more focused, as if she were trying to make sense of it all. Sometimes she would try to engage me in conversation about her sessions, but I remained distant, unsure of how to navigate this new dynamic. One evening I came home from work and found her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could see her anxiety manifesting in the way she bit her lip. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked, her voice shaking a little. I nodded, bracing myself for whatever was coming next. "What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she said, her eyes downcast. "I know that I've hurt you, and I want to do something to show you that I'm serious about making amends." "What do you mean?" I asked, curiosity piqued. "I want to write a letter, a real letter, not just some text message or social media post. I want to put everything out there, the hurt, the confusion, and my promise to change. I want to share it with you and our friends. It's important for me to be honest with everyone." I was taken aback. This was an unexpected move, one that seemed to put her vulnerability on display. "You really think that's going to help?" "I think it's a start. I want to own up to my mistakes, not just to you but to everyone I've lied to. I want them to know that I take full responsibility for my actions." Her sincerity made me pause. It was a bold step, and I couldn't deny that it stirred something within me. Maybe she was serious about making changes. "All right," I said slowly. If you think that's what you need to do, then go for it, but know that it won't erase what you've done. I know, she replied, her voice steady, but it's a way for me to begin rebuilding. I can't expect you to just forgive me overnight. I have to show you that I'm committed. As she began drafting her letter, I couldn't help but feel conflicted. Part of me wanted to support her, to see if she could truly change. But another part of me warned that this could easily be just another ploy, another way to manipulate the narrative in her favor. I realized that the path forward wouldn't be easy. It was going to require honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront the pain we had both caused each other. The question lingered in my mind, could we really rebuild what had been so drastically broken? With Emily taking these steps, I felt a flicker of hope, but I knew that the road ahead was fraught with challenges. The journey toward healing would take time, and I was prepared to navigate the uncertainties together, one step at a time. As she poured her heart into that letter, I found myself wondering, was I ready to let go of the past and embrace the possibility of a new beginning? The days turned into weeks, and Emily was persistent in her efforts to amend the damage she had caused. I watched as she put in the work, attending therapy regularly and opening up about her feelings. It was a strange mix of hope and skepticism for me. I couldn't ignore the fact that while she was trying, I was still grappling with the pain of betrayal. Each day brought a renewed sense of unease. When she finally finished writing her letter, I could see the weight of the world lift off her shoulders. She had spent hours drafting and redrafting, and I was both curious and anxious to know what she had written. I would be lying if I said I wasn't worried about how it would affect our friends' perception of us. One evening, she sat me down on the couch, a mix of excitement and anxiety etched on her face. "I'm ready to share it," she said, her voice wavering slightly. "I think it's important for both of us." "Are you sure?" I asked, my heart racing. "Once you put this out there, there's no taking it back." "I know," she replied, her eyes steady, "but I need to do this. It's part of my healing and I want to take accountability." I nodded, understanding the significance of this moment for her. "All right, let's hear it." She took a deep breath and began to read aloud. The words poured out with a raw honesty that caught me off guard. She talked about her loneliness, the emptiness she had felt in our marriage, and how she had chosen to seek validation outside of our relationship. She expressed genuine remorse for her actions, acknowledging the hurt she had caused me and the betrayal of our vows. As she read, I found myself swaying between anger and compassion. It was hard to hear her articulate the very things I had felt, the betrayal, the loneliness, the disconnection. But she also spoke about her desire to change, to grow as a person, and to rebuild our relationship. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness right now," she concluded, her voice trembling. "But I want to earn it. I want to become someone you can trust again." When she finished reading, I felt a heavy silence envelop the room. I could see the vulnerability in her eyes, and I knew she had laid herself bare in front of me, revealing her deepest flaws, but that didn't erase the hurt. "Thank you for sharing," I finally said, choosing my words carefully. "I can see you put your heart into that, but it doesn't change what you've done." "I know," she said, tears pooling in her eyes, "and I'm not asking you to forget. I'm just asking for a chance to prove that I can change." That night, we ended up discussing the letter with our close friends over dinner. Emily explained her journey and the steps she was taking to improve herself. Their reactions were mixed, some supportive and others more skeptical. I felt a sense of relief, but there was also a lingering tension. While they mostly listened, some friends questioned her sincerity. "How do we know this isn't just a phase?" one of our friends asked. "You've hurt Jake deeply, and rebuilding trust takes time. Are you ready for that?" Emily nodded, her expression earnest. "I know it will take time, and I'm committed to doing the work. I just want to be better for him and for myself." As the conversation continued, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. I was proud of her for standing up and taking responsibility, but I was also uncertain about what this meant for our future. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning, and that the road ahead would be long and arduous. After our friends left, I felt exhausted. I had shown some level of support for Emily, but I was still grappling with my own feelings. I needed to confront the reality of our situation. Could I really forgive her? And if so, how? Jake, Emily said softly, breaking the silence. I know this is all overwhelming, but I need to know where you stand. Can we move forward together, or do you need more time? I took a deep breath, staring at the floor as I mulled over her question. I think I need more time, Emily. I want to support your growth, but I also need to protect myself. I can't just jump back into this as if nothing happened. She nodded, her expression one of understanding mixed with disappointment. I get it. I just hope you know that I'm committed to making this work. I don't want to lose you. As the days turned into weeks, I started to notice subtle changes in her behavior. Emily was more attentive and open. She was making an effort to connect emotionally. At the same time, I found myself wrestling with my feelings. Some days I felt hopeful, convinced that we could rebuild. Other days, the betrayal felt fresh, and I would find myself spiraling into anger and resentment. I decided to start my own therapy sessions. I needed a space to process my emotions, to understand how I felt about the situation, and to figure out whether I truly wanted to move forward with Emily. My therapist helped me unpack the layers of hurt and betrayal, guiding me towards self-discovery. In our sessions, we explored my feelings about trust, vulnerability, and whether I was ready to allow Emily back into my heart. I found myself reflecting on our past, what had worked, what hadn't, and whether love alone could heal the wounds of infidelity. Through this journey, I began to understand that while Emily's actions had shattered my trust, rebuilding it was a two-way street. It would take her commitment and my willingness to embrace vulnerability and face the pain together. As I continued my therapy, I also started to notice changes in Emily. She was taking the process seriously, making strides in her personal growth. I saw glimpses of the person I had fallen in love with, and it gave me hope. But it also made me question the future we could have together. As I navigated through this emotional turmoil, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened next would determine not just the course of our relationship, but also who I was becoming as a person. Would I be able to forgive and rebuild, or was it time to let go? The answers were still uncertain, but I was prepared to face whatever lay ahead. The journey was far from over, and I was ready to keep moving forward step by step. As the weeks turned into months, I continued my therapy, and Emily remained committed to her own personal growth. It was a process filled with ups and downs, but something began to shift between us. While the scars of betrayal still lingered, I started to see the flicker of the relationship we once had. Emily was actively working on herself. She joined support groups, kept attending therapy, and began to communicate openly about her feelings. One evening, after a long day at work, I found her sitting on the couch, a notebook open in her lap. She looked up as I entered the room, a hopeful smile lighting up her face. "I've been journaling my thoughts," she said. "It's been really helpful for me to sort through my feelings. I just wanted to share a few things with you." Curious, I sat down beside her. She began reading passages from her journal, detailing her realizations about why she had strayed. She talked about her feelings of loneliness, the disconnect she had felt in our marriage, and how she had sought validation in the wrong places. "I understand now that I was looking for something outside of myself instead of reaching out to you," she said, her voice steady. "I let my insecurities dictate my actions, and it cost me everything." As she spoke, I felt a mixture of emotions. Part of me was still guarded, wary of the past and the pain it had caused, but another part of me recognized the growth she had achieved. "I'm proud of you for putting in the effort," I admitted, my voice softening. "It's not easy to confront those feelings, but I also have to keep reminding myself that it's going to take time for me to heal." "I understand, and I'm willing to be patient," she replied, her eyes earnest. "I know that rebuilding trust is a process, and I want to be there for you every step of the way." As the weeks progressed, we began to find ways to reconnect. We started going on regular date nights, exploring our city like we used to. Each outing felt like a small step toward rediscovering the bond we had lost. We talked about our dreams, our fears, and even our plans for the future. Yet the shadow of her betrayal still loomed over us. Some nights I'd wake up in a cold sweat, memories of the pain flooding back. I realized that while I wanted to move forward, it required confronting my own feelings rather than pushing them aside. One evening, I decided to broach the topic of our future. Emily, I want to talk about what all this means for us. Are we really on the path to rebuilding? She took a deep breath, her expression thoughtful. I hope so, Jake. I want to be the partner you deserve, but I know it's not enough to just say it. I have to show you through my actions. I want to believe that, I said, my heart racing. But it's going to take time. I don't want to rush this or put pressure on ourselves. I need to feel secure in this relationship again. I agree, she replied, her voice steady. Let's take it one day at a time. I'm committed to making this work. We continued our journey of healing, and while the scars of betrayal were still there, I began to understand that they could also be a source of strength. We learned to communicate more openly, expressing our needs and fears without judgment. It was a delicate dance, but one that slowly began to feel more natural. As I reflected on everything that had transpired, I realized that the journey had transformed me as well. I had grown stronger, more resilient, and more aware of my own needs. I learned that healing isn't linear. It's messy and complicated, but it's also beautiful in its own way. Eventually, I found myself in a place where I could forgive Emily, not just for her sake, but for my own. Holding onto resentment would only weigh me down. I chose to let go of the pain and embrace the possibility of a new beginning. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I turned to her and said, I've realized that I can't change the past, but I can choose how I move forward. I want to give this another shot, to truly rebuild what we had. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were tears of relief. Thank you, Jake. I promise I won't take this for granted again. And so we embarked on a new chapter, one filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. The road ahead might still be challenging, but we were committed to walking it together. I learned that love can be incredibly resilient, able to withstand the harshest storms if both partners are willing to put in the work. Emily's affair had shattered our lives, but through honesty, vulnerability, and a commitment to growth, we found a way to rebuild. As I looked at her that evening, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The journey had been long and fraught with pain, but the possibility of a renewed love felt worth every step we had taken. And with that, I knew we could face whatever came our way together.